So I have three Schomburgkia thomsoniana seedlings. And one of the reasons that I love to have multiples of a seedling is because it allows me to grow them in different ways and I can experiment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose three different ways to grow this plant, and over time I think it's really valuable because it's a way to view it over time to see which is more successful for your growing area. And what's working for me here now, if I move to a different location or if I was growing somewhere, it may be somewhere else, it may be a totally different situation. So I'm going to choose three methods and give this a whirl. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to take a standard clay pot, and I'm going to do this in a fairly basic standard approach, I think. I'm probably potting this in too big of a pot, but I also have sort of a unique situation here where I want to overpot my stuff a little bit. Okay, take the plant, take my pot, take my bark, and pour it around. I don't want this to be packed too tight. I want it to be nice and airy. And notice, I didn't say this very clearly, but notice that when I planted this, when I potted this just now, I took the oldest growth and I put it against the wall or further against the wall, and then I took the newest growth and put it facing where it's got the most room to grow inside the pot. So that's my first method. My second method is I am going to take a piece of redwood mount and I'm going to mount this guy. So I will, because it's so small, I'm going to take a tiny bit of moss on this one. But before I get too carried away, let's figure out actually which way I want this to grow. So that little growth, that little new lead right there, that's the direction this plant is growing in. So what I want to do is figure out the most appropriate way for that plant to have a good direction, a good room and space. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with this right here. So I'm leaning against the pot. It's almost the same method as I'm doing with inside the pot. So this growth is going to come out, the next growth will come out, and then eventually I think this is going to wrap around. This will be, in a couple of years, if all goes according to plan, this will be a piece of wire sticking out of a ball of orchid. So I'm going to hold it down, and I take a tiny bit of moss and put it over there, and that's just because the plant is relatively small. And then I'm going to, it's going to be pretty easy to mount this guy on here because he's so small, but yet pretty healthy and robust. So going on the roots pretty hard, quite a bit of tension I'm putting on this. I'm holding the leftover excess with my other hand, and that's pretty firm. Sometimes I'll go through inside of here. I don't need to. That's on there. That is on there. So I will chop that off and stab myself with this piece of wood and tie this on. I found that one solid little tight pull is sufficient. Doing two doesn't seem to really work for me, and I usually screw things up. So that's on there. That's not going anywhere, and I'll usually just test that and pull it a little bit. That is solid. I will take my pair of pliers, and what I'm going to do with this one, because I know I've already talked about this is going to get really big, I'm going to make a really long mounting wire for this. So take just a little bit like that, twist it over itself, crimp this down into a point. I pre-drilled this hole, so the important thing, pull this through curling upward like that. This is not super deep, but this is just what I think works the best. Curling upward. Take my adjustable pliers and hope I can get a really clean pull through on this. So I'm going to do this relatively carefully. I want this to be snug, neat, tidy. If it doesn't work tidy, it's okay. That's kind of a perfect one. If it doesn't work tidy, you can still work with it. It's still going to pinch, even if it's kind of sticking out, even if you mangled it a little bit, and it'll be fine. But that's tight and nice. And then I'm going to put a bit of a loop here, straighten this. But I do want some tension over time. As this gets heavier, it'll pull, but this has got a nice bit of, that's kind of exactly what I wanted. Okay, so, and lastly is I'm going to take a basket, and I want this to grow in this basket, and I want to basically leave it alone. I just want to grow, I want this to grow unencumbered. And actually, I'm going to show you real quick just so you can see how this works. So for those of you that are skeptical, this is a Schomburgkia digbiana. It's a little bit older. It's been in here for a while. You can see the roots grew down. I'm pretty happy with this. Pretty healthy plant. Nothing in there. Just let it hang. Gets enough water. So I will do the same with this guy. And at this point, if you ever gotten these baskets, this is square. It's a 4-prong basket. It needs a 4-prong hanger. The way I've learned to do these, there may be better methods. This has worked well for me. I take the hanger. I make sure that I'm separating them. These branches, these things aren't crisscrossing, and I pre-bend them. So I take one side, pre-bend, take the other side, the same height, pre-bend, and this is going to make my life much easier. So now, when I go in, if you have a bigger plant, I'm going to reset this orchid once I get the hanger on there. I'll usually set the hangers on before I do anything with the plant, so the hanger is ready to go. But so this was, hopefully you can see how easy this was. When I've not done it this way, when I've tried to bend these things inside of these, inside of the pots, like just start with a straight one, it can be an unfun thing. So that's really all I'm going to do. I'm just experimenting with this. I have 3 of these. I don't think this is going to be too bad. I live in a really wet environment. If you live in a drier environment, put some bark in there, put some moss in there. You know, I can feel people's not feeling pretty happy about this. I'm going to really, really loosely pack some moss in there. That's just to retain a little bit of moisture because this is a young plant. So, last thing, I have 1 label ready to go. So, I am going to make now 2 additional labels. And my recommendation for all of you, those of you out there, is copy the label exactly. You can potentially leave the numbers off if you want to, but even those are sometimes valuable. If you get them from a really reputable orchid grower and they have a number on them, you might want to go back and order another one at some point. So I'm going to put the full name, and I'm also going to date these. And I'll just put today's 7/14 of 18 for my European friends, Australian friends. That is July 14th. So I've got all of these ready to rock and roll. I will put one in here. So what I like to do with all of my hanging ones is I remove the point on these, on the labels, and I take my handy hole punch, which has been so unbelievably valuable, and I punch a hole, and I will punch a hole. Now this gets locked in there. It's not going anywhere, and in fact on this one in particular I'm really going to bend that down. That is not going anywhere no matter what happens here. Well, never say never. Never say no matter what. This one will go just like this. And now I have 3 different ways of growing this. If I have much more success with one of these than another, then I know that with these in the future, that's the way I want to grow these here. But pretty fun way to do it. Just a twist if you get a couple of the same plant. Thanks.